you, I've never actually talked to fencers before, so I'm feeling a little bit nervous, because obviously you guys know way more about fencing than I do, but hopefully I know a bit more about you, about sports psychology. So yeah, I expect that when you leave here today, you'll have a few more tools in your toolkit in terms of managing that brain abuse. Now, just for background, so I'm born and bred in Hawke's Bay, a proud Hawke's Bay, a native person. My background was primarily military, so I was in the Air Force for 7.5 years and Army for the last 20 or so years, reservist force. So that's where I learned a lot about how to manage under pressure and under stress. So we'll be talking about those sorts of components today. Other sports that I work in are rugby, cricket, and yeah, a lot of surf life saving and things up the coast. So yeah, thank you for having me here today. It is going to be an interactive session, but I want to set the scene first. So I'm going to read you something just to think about, and then we're going to go into the content for today. So, imagine, this is imagine stuff. Imagine the feeling you would get as an athlete moments before you walk out onto the biggest stage in the world. What would that be, by the way? What would be the, I guess if you had a dream goal to compete at a certain level, what would be up there? Would be Olympics? Should we go with the Olympics? From the Olympics here? Probably have that here. Okay. Thousands of spectators will be watching your every move. You've been training hard for the last few months or years. Your skills are looking sharp, you're fit and strong, and you're feeling really positive. But just before you step out on the court, your heart starts pounding, your palms are sweaty, and you start feeling nervous and under pressure to perform really well. You start to think, what if all these months and years of training don't pay off and I make a fool of myself? What if I muck things up in front of all these people and let myself down, my team down, my country down? Okay, so maybe you're not competing at an international level just yet. I'm assuming we're here as a region. And are you from all parts of the country? Fantastic. Who's the furthest away? Auckland? Christchurch. You're going this far away. Some water. But you'll know what I mean if you've ever played in a regional or national tournament. Yeah? That covers everyone. Trials. Yeah. Okay. So pressure can make you or break you, can't it? The difference lies in your mind. I'm sure all of you at some point would have panicked under pressure. I'm sure all of you at some point would have been in a bout where you could have done something really well but you made a mistake. And I'm also sure that there are a number of you, if not all of you, who have been behind in a bout. Am I using the right terminology here? You've been behind and you've come from behind and won. You all relate to that too? So the pressure, can impact us in certain ways and it can help us perform well, but also it can get to us too much. So today's session is about introducing or perhaps reintroducing to some of you the concepts of performance psychology. So again, you have the tools to practice throughout the training camp and use when you're in competition. So, little brain on the screen there. What I want you to do is spend 30 seconds, talk to the person next to you about what makes a good fencer. And then we're going to come back and do a bit of a whiteboard. So just what qualities make for a good fencer?
The qualities that good fencers have, practice is something you do. Practice isn't something that is qualities have like steady mindset. Steady mindset.
Alright, okay, who wants to start off? What's one of the first qualities that is useful or that comes with being a good fencer? Yes, be coachable. Coachable. So what does that mean?
Yeah, how about this?
I'll take something for it to the fence. So be coachable, so be open to coaches' ideas, so listen to them, to be willing to work, come with a good attitude.
What was on about attitude?
Sorry?
You said about attitude?
Oh, have a good attitude.
A good attitude. So what is a good attitude?
Positivity.
Yeah.
Openness.
concept, but it's a really important one, eh? Fantastic. Yes.
To be okay when you lose.
Okay when you lose.
Like, to not feel bad about being off, like, to lose.
Yeah. So is that sort of resilience as well?
Yeah.
Do you think? Or that kind of growth mindset? Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah. So that resilience. Cool. What else? Yeah.
Commitment.
Commitment. Is that tricky when you've got school staff and you've got friend stuff and family stuff to sometimes fit fencing in? Yeah. What other qualities? Now, I'm talking about mindset qualities as well as physical qualities. Yeah.
Good mental well-being.
Good mental well-being, great, yeah. That's a biggie, eh? Yeah. Mental health is massive. Cool, and there's one here. Yeah. Fit, okay. So, like, fit as in cardio fit? Like,
Well, there's like fitness, yeah, like cardio, and then like also like good at fencing.
good. So what qualities, if you were trying to teach me how to fence,
Like,
that would be a
footwork.
huge challenge. So, good footwork?
Yes.
Like, quick footwork?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hong Kong fences.
What else do I need to rip up? What else? What other sorts of
Good blade work.
blade work? So, is that flexibility or?
Technically skillful.
Blade work. So when you say skillful, is it quite a thinking sport?
I'd say adaptive.
Adaptive? Yeah. So in the moment, Baz, like, you respond to things.
In the immediate and in the long term, I think you can be adaptive across both. It sort of harkens back into flexibility and ability to manoeuvre and change, whether it's on the strip, on the day, in a match, or
Yep.
reapproaching your training to get more out of you. That makes sense.
So it takes, I'm assuming it takes all of your senses to be a good fencer, would that be right? You're watching, you're hearing, you're feeling, you're sort of like, yes. We could go on quite a bit, couldn't we? So you covered some, actually, you covered some qualities that I actually haven't got on my slide. What we can add to that, we've got things like composure. Do you got one too?
Yes, steady
Yeah.
mindset.
What's that?
Steady mindset.
Steady mindset. So what do you mean by the steady?
Um,
Because you're right. Is it sort of that composed thing, like being unflappable, unflustered, sort of zen? Okay. Cool. So we've got on the screen in front of you, we've got composure, reaction times, probably pretty important, strength, the fitness, endurance, kind of fitness again, attitude, been said, decision making, got to be on point really, literally on point. Yeah. Focus, which is a biggie, I'm assuming, we'll get into that shortly. Being complete, yeah, a whole lot of stuff. Fantastic. Okay, so what do all these things have in common? Apart from fencing, obviously. There's a subtle hint in the middle. Who's a good catch? We can pass it around, we should go if you want. Yes, the brain. The brain is central to our performance, your performance as a fencer. Regardless of whether it's muscle stuff, we talk about fitness, muscle memory is to do with our brain. How quick our fingers to do with our brain. How well we move our body is to do with our brain. So our brain is essential to the body's performance. So this session will cover off some skills and some tools that you will use to manage your brain more effectively. To manage your mindset, as you mentioned, to be more resilient, and to obviously be a better fencer. And these are actually skills that you can use not just within fencing, but also in your life. So as you grow and develop and you go through stuff, some of the skills that we learn today will actually help you across the board. So overall, we know that performance in sport is affected by several factors. So, you've got your physical preparation. So you would have had Ryan come in and talk to you, was it this morning or yesterday? Yeah, about some of that strength and conditioning stuff, the high performance physical fitness and things like hydration and nutrition as well. I think you've got a nutritionist coming and talking to you later. And then you've got your technical skill. So that's your ability as a fencer. And again, I'm not even going to try to describe all the skill set that you guys have, but you know, what we call your technical aptitude to fence well. And then over on the right, that's what I'm here for. That's psychological readiness. Your ability to manage that mindset, manage that brain of yours, in order to perform well. And they're all really important. I mean, a breakdown in any of those, either of those three, will lead to an inferior performance. In saying that, the higher you get up in terms of your skills as a fencer, the more important your mental skills will be. Does anyone have an idea as to how much at a professional level, how much of your performance is dictated by your mental skills, like percentage-wise? 90, yeah. Is that a surprise for some of you? 90%. Why do you say 90? Because you know this. Why is it 90?
Because everybody's operating at the maximum physical and technical skill at a very equal level. The thing that differs is your belief in stuff.
Yeah. So when you get to a certain level, it's around, you know, you may be as physically capable as the other person who's trained as much or if not more than you perhaps. But the top 2 inches, what we call the top 2 inches, you know, our brain is a differentiator between you being good and you becoming great and you staying there. Because it can be a long game. I don't know how long people can fence for, but probably a good few years. You know, not looking at the people in the room. Yeah. So the majority of you sitting on the mats may have got here because of your physical aptitude, you know. But as you get better in sport, the mental game will come into play. So you need to take on board that strategies that we cover. So in terms of why I'm here, when you think about what's performance psychology or you think about sports psychology, what kind of things are you expecting me to talk about today? Yeah.
About the brain?
Awesome. So about the brain, a little bit about how it works. It's really important to understand the science behind what we do, eh? Yeah.
How to keep calm.
How to keep. How to keep calm. Yeah.
Like green brain whatever is what?
Okay. I'll sort of we'll definitely talk about the red brain, blue brain. I think I'll put it on the board to remind me to use those terms. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Like fight or flight.
Awesome. Yep. So I'll put the S here, and that's what I mean, okay? Nothing else. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge topic, and you know, I've got an hour today, and hopefully I'll be good enough to be brought back in another camp in the future, and I can fish out a few more things. So it's very broad, and we'll be covering probably the skimming a lot of the top of it to delve into next time. And saying that, if there are things that are brought up here that I don't go into in much detail, but that you want more of, then let me know and I can send some stuff through. Okay. So, just to, again, come back to the context piece. So performance psychology is about managing our headspace, our brain. And I call it headspace because it's important to recognise that it's a limited capacity. We only have so much space in here. So we need to use that space really well to get the best outcome. Does that make sense? Managing our headspace. Managing our headspace means managing our thoughts and our feelings. Our thoughts and our feelings relate to how we behave. You know, so depending on how we manage those three components determines how we perform. And how do we do that? We use mental skills. So mental skills are strategies or behaviours or techniques that we use to prepare before an event, focus, make good decisions, be confident in our abilities, perform at our best, and cope with pressure and manage stress. So in terms of these pivotal moments, and again this is really for me, if you think about an event, the fencing, what are some critical moments during a bout that may need a bit more focus? Yeah?
The very start before it starts.
So,
Before
So, at the very beginning, yeah? So is that even before you step on, before you're up? Before you're ready to go? Yeah? Cool. When else? Yeah?
Like the final point, if it's like 4-4, I don't know what it is for Sabre, like 15, 14.
Yeah. So it can go either way? Yeah, yeah. The final point? Yeah? Cool. When else?
During the bout, just
During.
like in general, well, like, because you've got to be able to just like put your thoughts and feelings aside and strategize and think of what you're going to do instead of get overwhelmed by emotion.
When is it most difficult during the bout?
I'd say when you're like,
Like when you're losing or when you make a mistake? Is that?
maybe not necessarily because you can learn from that mistake. So
Yeah.
it's more like, I guess, when you're like stuck at ideas and you don't know what to do, like, because from mistakes you can learn, oh, I can't do that next time. Whereas if you're not making mistakes and you're not getting any points, you might get stuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it's always like the options aren't clear to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. When you need to almost do a reset. Right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And we could, and if you think about, again, the whether it's critical moments during an event or about, or critical actions that you need to do, and again, my lack of knowledge precludes me from going there, but Mary, do you want
Sorry, is this about when it's difficult to thinking about?
to say again?
Is this a list of when it's difficult to thinking about?
Yeah, that when the
Oh,
pressure
so
just comes
If
on.
you've made up a few points, so you were losing and now you're even,
Okay.
that point at which I find quite a few thinks is almost a choke is to get ahead.
Yep.
I've caught up, but then how do you push through and get ahead?
Yep.
So they play the freeze up.
Yep. Yep. Yes.
It's like similar to that is maybe sometimes when you are ahead, but you kind of like overthink and then you end up.
Yeah. It's not all easy when you're ahead, is it? It's almost like.
Or you get too like complacent.
Yep. Yep.
After gear break.
So what was that?
After gear break.
After that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll keep it to you. Okay.
Because you're just thinking.
How often is that?
All the time.
Oh, really?
The two choices for fencing or drugs, and you keep breaking weapons.
Wow, so when the gear breaks, what actually happens in basic, like they need to just stop?
You've got to go get another one out or something. You've got to fix like a wire that's broken or something. So
Yeah.
you change the body wire. And so you're going things through. And the other, your opponent had this nice break and you go, oh, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and to recap.
Yeah, and you're sitting there going, oh, this is
I think a critical moment is when you end up overstimulated during the match and your brain either shuts down or goes into overdrive. So, you know, it kind of harkens back to rebrain, but like something might go on, referee might make a call and you don't understand all the anger just goes.
So when you're emotions, yeah.
Yeah, you end up emotionally overwhelmed. Like I think that's a really critical point to get that under control super quick.
Yep.
Because it can spiral out super fast.
Okay. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so, yeah.
There's another one which may seem counterintuitive. In a reclamation about one fencing, 3 minutes, no coach involvement. 1 minute break, coach involvement. And you had 3 sessions of that.
Yep.
In that coaching space, it's often be a challenge because what happens is the coach is coming in and trying to actually dump a lot of information onto you.
Yep.
So it's a challenge for the athlete, it's also a challenge for the coach to learn.
When to,
You shut up
when it's time for coaching and when it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
But for an athlete to manage that and be able to say,
Yep. I'll just put the coach.
Coach Jim.
Yes, that's a very good coach. So.
And that's very, yeah, and that's an interesting point because we talked lately, later about when to coach yourself and when not. Yeah, and what that means in your thinking. Awesome. Okay, so as we go through some of these things today for the session, I do want you to be thinking about those and other critical moments and critical actions that you execute that maybe put pressure on that brain, on that headspace, okay? Because that's what we're talking about, dealing with pressure. And you'll see that, you may not see, depending on where you sit, but I've put pressure and stress in italics. I've mentioned them separately, and there's a reason for that. It's because they're slightly different. So pressure, when we talk about pressure, pressure is a demand to perform. Pressure moves us to perform at our optimal level, at the best we can perform. Okay? There's two emotions related to pressure. Can anyone tell me what those two emotions are? Kind of on the end of each of the scale. Yeah?
Anger.
Anger to a point. What often is behind anger?
Nervousness and fear, like stress.
Fear, yeah. So one of the emotions that we often feel under pressure is that fear. What would we be fearing? What would we be worrying about? Yeah? Underperforming, not winning.
Doing the wrong move.
Doing the wrong move, yeah. So a fear of failure, a fear of not doing well. What's the other emotion? Yeah.
Focus.
Focus,
Trying to stay focused.
We're probably, what's an emotion that when we're feeling it, we're probably a bit more focused than when we're fearful? Without saying. What's the other side of fear? Where we go, where we're going? Excitement, yeah. So yeah, so we've got that. What would we get excited about when we're under pressure? What brings that on? Like excited about winning, doing well, succeeding, executing really smoothly. Yeah. So we've got two emotions to do with pressure. We've got the fear emotion and we've got the excitement emotion. And depending on how we perceive that pressure determines what emotions we experience. I really like this saying, a diamond is merely a lump of coal that did well under pressure. Yeah. Think about it, coal is the same chemical element for any of you chemists out there as what makes a diamond. Does anyone know what the element is that creates coal and makes diamonds as well? Carbon, yeah. So a diamond is merely a lump of coal that did well under pressure. So for the most part, we like to think of pressure as a good thing, and that's a given. You're choosing to compete in a sport at a high performance level. So there's always going to be pressure, eh? Is that right? There's going to be some pressure to go and compete. And it's around how we manage that. As you get better and better, do you think there's more or less pressure to perform? More. Yeah, why is that?
Because you're expected to, because you're now expected to do, really well.
Yeah, so there's expectations of others on you. Where else are the expectations coming from? Yourself, yeah? Have we got any perfectionists in the room? Anyone who really likes to do a really, really good job? I guess there's probably a few of you, given the nature. Yeah. So, yeah, as you get better and better in your sport, so too the expectations can rise. So that can impact the pressure. And I think it's really important at your level, and even for the next few years for some of you, is that to recognise that there is that it can often get more difficult to manage that pressure because of how it looks. I'll talk through it. I'll talk about a running race because that's a bit easier than thinking about fencing, but I mean the same thing. When you were 3 years old and you were running 100 metres, it probably took a while, yeah? So yeah. I mean, I don't know how long it takes. For a 3-year-old to run 100 metres, it might be, I don't know, 30 seconds. Yeah. Actually, anyway. And by the time you get to a 5-year-old, you probably cut that time in half. Yeah? And by the time you get to a 10-year-old, again, you might have gone from 30 seconds to something like 15 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever, if you're really, really fast. What I'm saying is that as you get older and better in your sport, the differences in terms of performance are smaller. You know? So while that runner may have been taking 15 seconds off in the first few years, he or she now gets to taking 0.5 seconds off. Which means that you don't notice as much change or progress as you did early on. So that can make it very difficult too. Does that make sense? But what I'm saying is, as you get better in the sport, it's very easy to feel, I'm putting the same amount of effort in, but I'm only getting a slightly different result. You just got to keep perspective on that. So that's pressure. What is stress? Can anyone define what stress is to me? We talk about stress, what does that mean? Yeah? Nervousness, yes. We'll come back to those signs in a moment. Does anyone know why we experience stress? Yeah?
Maybe if you didn't do well under pressure, so you're like really worried about it.
You guys are too bright because you're leaping here. Yeah. I'll bring it back. I'll put a definition up first, or do you want to say what you...
Is it like the flight or flight?
that you mentioned before, the F's?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, stress is basically how our body and our mind respond to situations that we feel are challenging or a threat. Okay? So stress is our body's response to something that we see as a challenge, like a cyclone, like a dog running after us, or like about the fencing, a competition. You know, it's a challenge, and so our body is activated or mobilised to respond to that. So stress is a normal, natural response, and it's hardwired. It's hardwired in our brain cells to keep us alive. And you're right with the fight, flight. Do you know any other F's? There's actually 3 F's: fight, flight, or freeze. Yep. Yep. So we experience something that's challenging. So put it in your space. Oh, we've got a big competition, a big event. Our body mobilises to respond to keep us alive, keep us safe. And it does one of 3 things at the extreme level. We either fight, in a fight that saber-tooth tiger that's running after us from when we're a caveman, we're going to run away, or we're going to stop and freeze. And we're going to tease these out very shortly. Now this is great if we are getting chased by something like a dog or a saber-tooth tiger, but not so great when you're in a competition where you're facing an opponent. Okay? So it's about managing this normal response to get the best out. Right. I always get mixed up in my pieces of paper. And the thing with stress as well, that it happens in a split second, you know, so we need to actually take lots of practice to manage our stress in order to work it well. Now this is a really important graph, and you'll get a copy of this shortly, and you'll be writing on it. Has anyone seen this before? It's often called the stress performance graph, or you're nodding back there? Where did you see it? Another sports site?
Yeah, and Otago.
Say again?
And Otago Uni as well.
Oh, yeah.
School sites, yeah.
Yeah. So we use this a lot in the military, and we use it a lot in sport as well. It's a really good way of looking at the relationship between stress, or what we call arousal, our body's response to stress, and our performance. Yeah. So if you think at low levels of arousal or stress, our performance is pretty low. You know, you guys wake up in the morning, breakfast yet, kind of think of it, lacking energy, you're not going to perform well when you go out there, And as the intensity increases, so maybe you do some good prep, where you get your head into the right space, and we'll talk about those things in a moment, get more energy, you become more alert, and we have the space here, which we like to function in, called the zone. Has anyone heard of the zone? Being in the zone? Yeah, being in the state of flow. What do you understand is that to be? Yeah, both of you.
It's the thing where you feel like you're doing everything perfectly.
Yeah, good. It's almost easy, yeah? Yeah. How else would you describe it? Or coaches, how else would you describe being in that moment? It's almost just being in the moment, hey? Not really thinking too much, just doing, yeah?
The person who talked about it yesterday told us that it's like the ultimate version of yourself.
I suppose, yeah. I guess it's certainly where you want to be a lot of the time. We need to be clear that we're not there a lot of the time, that most of the time we're actually on both sides of the curve, moving up and down. But yeah, when you are there, when you're in that state of flow, or when you're in that zone, it's like things come out. You're calm, you're in control. You know, think about when you've had a really good battle with someone, or you're just loving it. You feel like you could go on forever. Yeah? That's being in that space. But we're in there for less than 20% of the time. So we need to be realistic about the skills that we can use to keep going back and forwards over the curve. Yeah. But on the other side of the curve, this right-hand side of the curve, is when arousal or stress, which is the flip side of pressure, when we feel the fear, when it starts tipping over. So I call it the tipping point. You know, we talk about anxiety, I think it's mentioned here, nervousness, you know, we get to a point where our performance is low. And that's probably the space that I work the most in. And that's probably the space that we'll talk about today the most, is when we get over that tipping point. Now this is a really simplistic diagram, okay? And it can vary depending on a number of different things. If you've got lots of stuff going on in your life, it's not just fencing, it might be NCEA or it might be family stuff or whatever, our threshold is lower. Yeah? We won't be able to manage as well under pressure. If we're fitter, if we're healthier, we're going to have it skewed to the right. We're actually going to have a higher threshold because we won't release stress hormones as early as if we're not fit. So being physically fit is really good too in terms of managing our stress. But yeah, we all individually have a tipping point that we need to learn to manage. And it will be different from the person next to you, and it will be different depending on the stage of the bout that you're in and so on. So having the ability to apply mental skills at those critical times and during critical actions when you're more likely to be over here will help bring you back into that zone much faster. Okay, so we go, well, what does that look like? What does it look like to be on that right-hand side of the curve? And this is when first hand up. I'll do the old person noise already, aren't I? But it's tough being 32. I'm not 32. If you just want to grab,
31.
31. Just want to grab one and pass them on. What I want to do is to take these groups of Actually, I'm going to talk first. So grab one and then we'll go shoot and I'll tell you what I want to do. Okay, so have we all got a handout? All got one here? So team, it makes sense. Guys, it makes sense that in order to be able to use...
I don't have one.
I don't have one. There might be one coming back around. In order to be able to use mental skills appropriately at the right time, you need to know when you're not in a good space. You need to know when you're in that tipping point. Or to use the red and blue brain analogy, you need to know when you're in the red and you're not in the best headspace to perform well. Okay? And we can look at this space in 4 ways. We can look at how we know in our body, guys. So what we recognise in our body when those things happen and we're not good. What do we notice in our brain and our mind in terms of our thinking? What do we notice in terms of the emotions that we recognise in ourselves and others when we're stressed? And what would we notice in our behaviour? So that's behaviour in general, as well as perhaps when you're fencing. If your coach was watching you or a selector was watching you, what would they notice that would indicate that maybe you're tipping over that curve, yeah? Maybe you're in the red brain rather than the blue. So talk in your groups. I'll give you a few minutes just to write down at least 2 examples under each heading, and if you can write more, that would be awesome. Of what it feels in the body, your mind, your happy, and then we'll do a group hack. You need a pen. Have a look.
I don't know what you're doing, Mister. What are you going to look at a big steady step and
Sometimes we feel when we have kind of like stress. when I'm stressed and I'm too many. I'm stressed and it's too many things fast. Yeah, too many.
Everyone, so we'll just I won't go into every group, but yeah, put your hand up here as an example. Should we start with the body? Again, thinking about the stress response, what it's all about. It's there to keep yourself safe, to fight, flight or freeze at that extreme point. What do we notice in our body, guys, that could tell us, oh, we're not really in the right zone, in the right headspace? Yeah?
Increased heart rate.
Heart rate. Why is that? Why does that actually happen?
So we have more blood flow.
Yeah, so can you guys hear over here? So our heart rate goes up to get more blood and theoretically oxygen around our body. Yep, okay. How does that change other aspects of our body? When our heart rate goes up, what else changes?
Breathing.
Yeah, so how do we breathe? Often breathe when we're under negative stress. Faster, and how else? Fantastic, yep, okay, we'll come back to that. So breathing, yeah, breathing changes, heart rate goes up. What else? Yeah.
Shaky hands.
Shaky hands. Why do we get shaky hands?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, yeah. So the adrenaline pumps out because it goes, we've got to respond really quickly to the threat. Boom! So a whole lot of adrenaline is dumped into our blood along with cortisol. And that activates us to be hypervigilant, which is good to a point, eh? It's still normal, good stuff. But yeah, we can get the shakes a little bit. I said someone had fidgety over here, eh? That's awesome, that kind of fidgetiness, restlessness. These are normal things. What else happens to our body? What happens to our muscles, guys? Like, kind of tension, a little bit of muscle tension. Is that good for fencing? Like to be really tense? Okay, so we're going to talk about how we manage that. Yep. What else? Someone said sweaty. Maybe it's sweaty hands. Yep. Again, the body's going, we're responding to a threat here. We've got to run and cool ourselves off by sweating. But again, maybe not so useful in the middle of the bout. Yep. As I go through, guys, so I'm putting a list up there. So if there are things that you specifically relate to, I want you to write them down on a piece of paper. So yeah, muscle tension. Sometimes we get the yawns. It's almost like our body's wanting more oxygen to be able to think and respond. Clammy hands, increased heart rate, and with that, the breathing. Does anyone here feel it in your tummy, like feel it in your gut? Yeah, so sometimes we feel like we've got a bit of an upset stomach. I've certainly dealt with sports people before who've actually been physically sick before competing. You know, because again, our body's going, I don't need to be digesting wheat bits when I'm out battling something. So it pumps a whole lot, it stops the acid going in, mucks things up a bit. So that's why we often feel that upset stomach. And butterflies, do you know what, you feel that butterfly feeling? I'm going to be talking a bit about that later. Remind me if I forget. Sweating and coordination difficulties. So that's just a normal response in terms of our body. What about, what's the next one? What happens to our thinking? What happens to our thoughts? Here's a really good example over here. What happens to our thoughts? What?
When you say to yourself that you lose it's impossible.
Yeah, I'm going to lose, this is impossible. We get that negative thinking, don't we? We get a real negative slant. And in fact, our brain is wired for negative things. You know, because we're wired for fear. So we're going to remember those negative things much more potently than we remember good stuff. Yep. Excuses. Sort of like, oh, what? I mucked it up, it wasn't my fault. Sort of thing, or...
I don't want to do this, not my because I can't do it.
So almost like our thinking is like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm not motivated, or I'm not engaged, or yeah, we talk ourselves out of it. What else happens to thinking?
Like, if it's enough on the other side of the scale, it'll just shut down.
Yeah.
Like, you can't think at all.
It kind of goes blank. Is it that freeze thing, maybe?
Yeah.
It's like almost like, well, what do I do? Like, I just can't think of any options. Exactly right. Yeah. Or sometimes do you think of too much? Like your head's too busy. There's all these voices chattering in your head. Perfectly normal. So, yeah, either go blank or think too much. Is it hard to make decisions in that moment sometimes? Yeah. So, and we just, you know, we certainly confirmed at the very beginning, fencing is very much a thinking sport. You've got to be on your game all the time, so this is really important. If you have an inability to concentrate, to maintain your focus, you know, if you're not attending to the cues around you, in the opponent or in the environment, limited decision making, poor prioritisation, you might be distracted. I think that for you young people, teenagers, they say, what, your attention span's only about 14 seconds now anyway. It used to be 20 back in my day. But you know, that's not very long. So if you're stressed, you're more likely to get distracted by things. Rumination, do you know what rumination means? It's what cows do when they chew their cud. But it is also what us as humans do when we're thinking and we're overthinking. And that's a real big sign of stress, is when we start to overthink, we then start to try and over-control. And our mind and body get out of sync. Yeah? And our negative self-talk. Cool. What about emotions? What are some emotions that you would notice in yourself or notice in others that would indicate that you're dealing with high levels of stress? Yeah?
Helpless.
What's that? Helpless. Yeah. Giving up. Yeah. What other emotions? Yeah. Nervous, anxiety, so again, these are all normal. Yep. More agitated, sort of the itchiness. Yep. What else? Overwhelmed. Yeah. And going back to our brain, we know that when we're stressed, our emotions drive our behaviour a lot more than our thinking. It's called a amygdala hijack. Part of our brain, our emotional part of our brain, the limbic system, actually hijacks our thinking when we're under stress or high pressure. You know, so we start to feel them, feel those emotions and feel them a lot more strongly, and they dictate what we do. Yeah. You had anger over there, eh? So anger written down, that frustration. Yeah. Sad. So tears are a big thing. Yeah. And neither is better or worse, it's just how emotions are. So I think we've got a lot of things that covered pretty much most of that. And obviously that low self-confidence, so that came up, I think, when we were talking about the mind, but also as a feeling. Did anyone have anything written down for actions? Because it's probably the hardest thing to write down. Yeah?
You like slip up or make poor decisions.
Make poor decisions, slip up, yeah, make mistakes. Yeah.
Go back to bad habits.
Go back to, yeah, fall back to bad habits. That's actually a really good point. That I want to talk about. I guess it's being aware of when you go back, when you're under pressure, under stress, you're more likely to go to your default. If you are often thinking negative, if you are looking at all the bad stuff you're doing on video footage, or you know, if you're focusing purely on what you need to improve on, then you will go to that kind of stress. So while a review needs to be really balanced, you know, if you're reviewing about, you need to go through the things that you're doing really well as well as the things that you're not. Make sure that you keep that balance balanced. That it's not all about the things you do wrong. Otherwise your mind will go to that under stress. So that's a really good point. Yeah.
In our break,
to bring some of that out? Do you want to bring? Not anger, but you want to bring aggression? Or is that something that's important in fencing? What's your aggression?
So aggression or anger?
Yeah.
So you want to control.
Fine line, eh?
Yeah. Control aggression.
So it's not like the red biscuits, it's all on, but it's like I want to bring some of that energy. Because that curve is still energy, but not over the top so that you lose focus. Yeah. So yeah, so there's a whole lot of action stuff there. Being reactive, as well as things like appetite and sleeping as well. Another sign too, in terms of managing it, is that if you are better in non-competitive situations than you are when you are competing, it's an indication that perhaps you could manage your stress a lot better. You know, so if you're doing your training camp stuff and everything's on point and you're great, and then you go and compete, and that pressure comes on, and you don't manage it and you see it as stressful, then you won't perform as well. Does that make sense? So that's an indication obviously for coaches to go, okay, we've got to work on how this person manages and all that arousal. Now practice is essential. I am getting to the mental skills, I'm sorry. So you do need to practice your mental skills, just as you practice your physical skill set, you also need to practice your mental skills to build your mental toughness. And ideally, this is a great opportunity over the next few days to practice them, because you should practice your mental skills alongside your physical stuff. And it's in training that you'll be thinking. In competing, in competition, you don't want to be thinking too much. So when you're training, you will think about what you're doing, so that when you're competing, you're not thinking so much, it should be more automatic. And there's off-court and on-court stuff. So as I said before, there's only a limited capacity here. So if you have got other aspects of your life sorted, you'll be better able to perform as a fencer on the court when you need to. Right. So this isn't the nuts and bolts of it. Well, what are the things that we can do on either side of the curve to make sure that we're in the zone as much as possible? So handout number 2. What I want you to do is as you go through, as I go through my slides, and you jump in and add your little bits in as well, I want you to write on the outside of the curve, what are the things that you do that are helpful? So again, please jump in as we go. The first thing, and it should actually be the first thing that you do, is breathe. You know that curve that I'm handing out to you? Breathing is the fastest way to circumvent the stress response. You can do self-talk, which we're going to talk about. You can do all the imagery in the world, which we're going to talk about as well, a little bit. But if you don't manage your body's response to that stress first, then other things may well be futile. Okay? How do we breathe? How should we breathe? What's that? Should we all stand up? Yeah, we'll stand up. So yeah, breathing is really important. It's a mind-body exercise. When we're breathing properly, it works on our body in terms of improving our coordination, our balance and our timing, which I'm guessing is massively important for fencing. Would that be right? And make sure that we get oxygen to our brain rather than carbon dioxide, because when we're stressed we get too much carbon dioxide around our brain, which causes us to be anxious. And it works on our mindset in terms of giving us a more positive and clear mindset. And it takes those blinkers away to help us see periphery. Because when we're stressed, actually, our eyes don't work as well, and we miss the stuff out to the side. Which again, I think is probably really important for you guys in your sport. Seeing where things are happening. Okay. So, breathing properly. I want you to put one hand on your chest, and one on your stomach. Keep breathing, because I'm hoping you're breathing now. And I want you to be breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Really gently, you're not trying to levitate up to the ceiling, you're just breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Really gently. Keep breathing. when you're breathing in through your nose, you want it to fill not just your chest but also your tummy. You're actually directing the air down to your stomach. So when you breathe in through your nose, you're filling your belly with air, and a little bit maybe with your chest. You're not trying anything to push it out, you're just really gently, shoulders are loose, breathing into your belly. And then as you breathe out, both hands go down. Keep breathing. There should be a cadence to it, a rhythm. So ideally when you breathe in, it might be that you're breathing in for 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 2. Out for 6. 2, 3. Breathe in again. So it's 4, 2, 6. Keep breathing. Now that might be a little bit long. And this is sort of pre-event sort of stuff. So it may be that you breathe in for 3, hold for 1, out for 6. Keep breathing. And it takes practice breathing, because in the moment our body goes, oh, doesn't it? So we need to practice our breathing into our gut. Right, grab a seat. Now, obviously, when you're fencing, you can't in the middle of a bout come and go, hey, just a moment, I'm just going to stop and do some breathing. Oh, you've got a question? You can?
Yeah, what the actions happen. When an action happens, when the referee says, oh, strike the action and lose the point. And then says, oh, go out in the meantime.
Meantime, you can
You
go for a walk. Awesome. Some of you do that. All of you hopefully do something like that. Yeah. And that would actually change your mindset too, which we'll talk about in a moment. Yeah. If you haven't got that time to go, you know, obviously feeling it into your gut, one thing you can do is you do a big breathe in to your gut, and then you go, and what it does is it activates that same nerve, the vagus nerve, but like that. Okay? So if you haven't got time to do 2 or 3 breaths in and out, either do as what's been suggested, or maybe 1 breath in and then a big breath out. Okay, it's almost like flushing it out. And it, again, it acts as a reset. You kind of go, right, I've got to focus here. I'm going to park that stuff, I'm going to focus here. Okay, so breathing, massively important. You guys will get a handout on this as well. Yeah. And you can use it breathing whenever. What would be some good time, you know, obviously during the bout, but when else would you need to use breathing? Yeah? Yeah, so if you're away from home, if you're sleeping in like a hostel, or you're being billeted or whatever, and you're not in your usual bed to help you go to sleep, yeah, and it's good practice to go to sleep. When else would you, like during an event, when else would you use breathing? Yeah?
When you're overwhelmed with people, tons of people around you.
Yeah, when you're overwhelmed with lots of people around you. So just it might be when you're off the court, hey, and things are getting a bit much and you want some time out. Or it might be just before you go on to have a bout. Or it might be after one. You've got another one coming up, but you want to sort of bookmark it, you don't want to bookend it. Breathe, just to reset and move on. So any times that your nerves are impacting upon your performance, remember it's okay if you're nervous, it's about managing that. That's a breathing thing. So we call it diaphragmatic breathing because it's breathing into your gut as well as your chest. And there's quite a few apps. If you guys are checking, you've got cool watches that you can go into and practice your breathing. That's cool. There's other ones. I think Calm is a really good one. Headspace, Insights Timer is really good for guided meditation too and breathing. But yeah, if you forget everything else from today, breathing is really important. In the military, we call it psychological first aid. Yeah.
Sorry, can you use breathing to rev you up? Because sometimes you're not quite on yet and you need to get
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
can you?
So you probably you might want to do it with an action as well. So I think it might be you're only on the spot, or rather than actually coming up to the breathe.
Correct.
Yeah. So say move your body.
So it's moving the heart rate.
Yeah. So so if you're on the other side of the curve, that's a really good point. You might want to look at Right, the second P, these are all P's, preparation. Preparation is really important. So it's physical prep as well as your mental prep. Where possible, and I'm not going into it today, but it might be something for later, the more consistent you are in terms of leading up to an event, the more consistent your performance will be, and the better able you are to manage your arousal levels. If we have a sense of control over what we're doing before a bout, and we know what makes a difference to us going into that bout, and we replicate that every time, then of course you're more likely to be successful in your sport. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure the coaches will work through it with you, but have a think about the things that you do the week leading up to a competition, the night before, the morning of. What are the things that you know set you up for a good performance? Yeah. It might be some imagery the night before, it might be some writing down some key work-ons or goals for the next battle. It might be having a really good breakfast. It might be your hydration levels. But if you have a basic routine, you're going to be more consistent in terms of your performance. If you're finding that across a season or across a year you're a bit up and down, chances are that your pre-event prep needs a bit of work. Imagery. Picture this. Who here uses imagery? Who here visualises what they're going to go through or what they're going to expect in a bout? Yep, so we've got different coaches up there. Any of you guys? Yeah? Okay. What do I mean when I'm saying the imagery or visualisation? What is that? When would you use it?
Like you're gonna do things, like you
Yeah.
know, like to hear before about you're like, okay, so this fence does this, I can do this. And
Yep.
visualize it.
So you think about the fence that you're going to compete against, and you go through, okay, if they do this, then I'm going to do this and this and this.
Yeah.
Yeah, same kind of thing.
I guess, like, there's also, when you're like, before you start, like, especially in statement, you can visualize the moment before they come.
Okay, yeah. How does it help you? How does it make a difference?
When you actually get to the moment, it's like more familiar to you.
Fantastic, yeah. So imagery is really powerful, and I could do an hour on imagery, and that's why I'm only doing a little bit today, very little bit today. But imagery can be used to, imagine yourself winning, but that gets us caught up in the outcome. And if we think about the outcome too much, we're thinking about a lot of stuff that we can't actually control. So when we image, it's about in the moment, the process stuff. So your technique, how you're going to execute, how you're going to manage your emotions. So if this happens, how am I going to look? How am I going to feel in that calm space? Yeah. And there are two types of imagery. Does anyone know what two perspectives we can take when we're imagining about in our mind? Yeah?
First person and third person.
Yeah, so what's first person imagery or internal imagery?
You're imagining yourself.
Yeah, so you're imagining seeing it through your own eyes. So it's sort of like if you, I'm no offence, sorry, but it's almost like I'm imagining looking at someone ready to go. Like I can see my, is it Sabre? My Icky Boyle? Is that right?
Who are you? Smashed all three. Yeah.
I've written my notes there, but I can see that as if I'm holding it there, you know, that's first person. And I'm there and my opponent's coming towards me and I'm imagining, I can see my hand, if I look down at my feet, I can see my feet, you know, I'm there. That's first person. Really powerful and really good for managing emotion. You know, into that space and I can imagine myself, I'm calm and I'm there and I'm coming towards me and I'm breathing and I'm feeling good and I'm really focused. Third person is the external, yeah? So it's like watching yourself on video, seeing yourself front up, do your thing with the opponent there as well. Really good for positioning, you know, so it may be to do with your footwork or where your body's at or where your head's at or whatever, or even the nature of the crowd around you. But yeah, both are really helpful, and it's probably useful to get your coaches to maybe talk through some examples of that, because it's too complex to think and cover today. It's definitely not touchy-feely, because when we imagine something, we're actually activating our muscle endings to send messages, so our nerve endings to send messages to our muscles just below movement threshold. So we're actually training our brain. And yeah, as I think you eloquently said, if you're imagining a whole lot of different scenarios, then when you encounter them for real, your body goes, I've done this before. Which means that you've got more capacity to respond when things change. Does that make sense? So imagery is really powerful for our brain. So sorry, I can't go into it much. Power poses. Does anyone know what I mean by power poses?
So like wrestling, like
Okay. I'll give you a very brief context of this. So, and this is a little bit to do with body language, which I think is really important in most sports and definitely in fencing in terms of having that presence and that confidence. There's a lady called Amy Cuddy. She was is a social psychologist in the States, and she had a hypothesis, had a theory that body language, changing our body language can change our thoughts and our feelings, but can also change our body chemistry. So what she did is she had 3 groups of people. One group of people were, before going into an interview, were just sitting normally around the room. The other group of people, the second group of people, were in what we call low power poses. So sort of, you know, when you make yourself really small, when you're like a bit anxious or worried, you don't want to show, you stand out, you're kind of like that. And the third group of people were doing these sorts of poses. Can everyone stand up? Please. You can either do, I want you to either do a Wonder Woman or a kind of Superman. So choose whatever you like. You want to be Wonder Woman, that's cool. I like Wonder Woman better. Okay. We've got more, probably more Superwoman. No, I should be Superwoman. I'm being very sexist here. Superman, Superwoman, Superman. Wonder Woman's over here. I'm here. I'm Superman. Wonder Man. Okay. Right, keep talking, keep your poses, keep your poses. What Amy Honey did is she got people to stand in these poses, or the low power, or the other ones, for 2 minutes. And then everyone went in for a mock interview. And even before and after they had that mock interview, they had some bloods taken. And those bloods were measuring testosterone and cortisol. Anyone tell me what testosterone is to do with? Come on. It's a sex hormone, and it's more predominant obviously in males. It's the male sex hormone, but it's to do with aggression and dominance. Yeah. Cortisol, on the other hand, is a stress hormone, not a sex hormone. A stress hormone that is increased when we feel stressed. Okay. You still doing it? Okay. What do you think? What do you think Amy found? What do you think the results were when she took bloods from all 3 groups, in terms of those who did the power poses and those who didn't? Yeah?
The people with the big poses. Yeah, the lion head pose.
They did better. The people who did the power poses for just 2 minutes did better in the mock interview, but they also had higher levels of one of those 2 chemicals. What did they have high levels of? Testosterone. Yeah. Those who did the low power poses had lower levels of testosterone and higher levels of cortisol, and they didn't perform as well. Now, they have replicated the study, and they haven't found a significant findings, which has caused a bit of grief for Amy Cuddy. Suffice to say that the results on the interview were still borne out. So what's that saying, guys? It's saying that actually how we hold our body does influence how we think and how we feel, which is a real powerful performance psychology concept to get your head around. But hey, if it increases the amount of energy or power or dominance or aggression in a calculated way, measured aggression that you can experience, then it's got to work well for you. I went to a New Zealand rugby workshop kind of seminar thing about 5 years ago, and I had everyone up there doing all these things. So even they do it. So you can probably do it better than they can. So be aware of how you hold your body pre-event as well as during and after to reset, but also to manage your thoughts and your feelings. Process, not outcome. I love this little picture on the slide here. And I guess the coaches know what Adam just said too. When we're in that state of flow, when we're in that zone space, we're usually in the moment. Because we can only control what we do in the moment. Can we change the past? If you make a mistake, can you change it?
No.
Is it worthwhile being out there still going, oh, let myself down, what a muck up, I shouldn't have stuck that. Is that helpful or harmful? Not helpful, So we can't change the past. Can we change the future?
Yes.
We can influence the future by what we do in the present, eh? Now, in sport, as I alluded to before, it's very easy to go to the outcome. You go out there and you want to win. Totally get that. Of course you do. You want to win every point. Yeah? But if you get caught up in the outcome, as I said before, you're getting caught up in things that are actually out of your control. Would it be true to say that you could fence the best bout you've ever done and fenced in your life and still lose? Would that be a reality? Why? Because your opponent's better than you? Or maybe the ref, do you call it ref, makes a bad decision and you go, yeah. So if we purely think about outcome, we're setting ourselves up to be disappointed. It's unrealistic to think we'll cross all that. But if we focus on the moment in terms of what you're doing right now with your feet, with your hands, with your shoulders, with your head, then that's all you can do. So it's really important to focus on the process. And often this aligns with what you say to yourself in your head. What are some things that could be useful rather than going, oh, don't stress out, or oh, I mucked that up? What kind of things could you say to yourself to reset and get back on track, to stay in the moment? Yeah.
I have kind of a specific one, which is like, I feel like I get a little bit, like I can't do anything, so I just have the tendency like, just don't be helpless, just like do something.
Okay.
It's better than nothing kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good example. Be careful of using the word don't, because often under pressure we don't hear don't. You know, if I said to you guys, okay, I want you to all go out there, don't panic.
Yeah.
Don't think about that sore knee. Don't think about that sore knee. You know, think about that. But I love the fact you said do. You said do something. Yeah. So focusing on the process. Love it. Yeah. Any other examples of anything that you say coaches and think would be useful?
I was taught one. I was taught to say, don't ever again let me catch you brushing that cat's teeth with my toothbrush. Right?
You don't have any friends, do you?
No.
I can give you one number at the end and you can reach out and screen it.
The point is that it doesn't matter what you say. The point is that it interrupts your negative thought and it resets you and allows you to head in a different direction, hopefully more positive direction.
Because I just laughed at it, sometimes I joke. I mean, I remember when they was being Peter Burling and who's the other guy? Playing shoot with the doctor. And they said, what do you talk about before you go out, you know? And they actually were making jokes. It's almost like, because sometimes we can think, and some of you maybe, you know, before you actually battle, engage in a bout, you might be really focused on, I need to do this and this and this. Keep it simple. But some of you might go, well, I don't want to overthink before I go in there, so I'm just going to actually have a laugh. I'll talk to a mate, or I'll put music on, you know, those sorts of things. But yeah, think about the cat brushing his teeth. But yeah, those process goals are really important. So rather than going, you know, it may be that you go keep calm, or it may be that you tell yourself to do something, breathe, or strong legs, or you know, light feet, or whatever comes to mind. Okay, but in the moment, if you go the 5 points down or 2 points down, then you get caught up in that future. Does that make sense? You're all attending really well. Really done. So yeah, process stuff. Perspective. So this is, I guess, how to move on. You know, that it's not the end of the world if you make a mistake. It's really easy, and you know, when you are performing, especially at a higher level, to beat yourself up. You know, if you stuff up or you don't achieve something, you know, you've got to keep perspective on this. One mistake doesn't a good fencer make. Doesn't a bad fencer make. You know, everyone makes mistakes. Will this be important in a day, in a week, in a month? Probably not. So it's around just keeping perspective when you're in bout and when you're in a competition. You know, be able to move on. And this is sort of to do with the coaches, really. I'm sure they do, you know, making sure that the program or the intensity of practice matches how you are in competition. You want to prep how you want to perform. This needs to be aligned with that. It's very easy to say that, oh, in competition, I'll you know, we rise to the occasion. Well, no, we're more likely to drop to the level of our training. So make sure when you're doing imagery, when you're doing training, that it's real. You know, you prep how you want to be in competition. You don't do softly. You know, so that when you go out there, it's almost easier than before. Are there any questions on any of those? I'll make sure I get that hand up before we go. And I apologise in advance because I've squished a lot of stuff. But they're all written with P, so hopefully that will get you thinking. So, I guess in summary, we can train our brain. Let's just go out another brain here, right? Just letting you know. We can train comfortable, and everything we do creates new connections. So we want to make sure we're doing the good stuff and we reinforce it. The stress response is normal and natural, but we need to manage it to be able to. We're not trying to get rid of it. It's all right if you feel some level of nerves, because that's your body going, I've got adrenaline. The butterflies thing, you didn't remind me. You know when we feel butterflies in our stomach? Are there butterflies in there? No. What's causing butterflies? What do we start thinking when we feel butterflies in our stomach? What is the first thought that we often have? I've got butterflies, so I'm nervous, maybe? Yep. Butterflies are actually the feeling of our blood going away from our stomach to our muscles to be ready. So if we reframe it, I've got butterflies, I'm not nervous, I'm ready, I'm pumped, I'm going to be so quick. So reframing is really helpful, but the stress response is normal and it's about managing it. Mental skills will help you be at your best, both on court and off court. There are a number of tools and techniques you can do before an event, during an event and post-event competition to manage your headspace, and these take practice. So thank you guys, I have to get up and hopefully it's been helpful for you today, and I'm sure there are things that the coaches will continue to do.
Alright, thank you very much everybody. Does anyone have any pertinent questions right now? No? Alright, so we'll clap. 3, 2, 1, go! Off you go kids! Out the other room. Grab up your books, grab up your pens, paper.